Hello, my name is Janet Sowers and I work for Sewingly Yours in Louisville, North Carolina. We are a baby lock dealer. Wanted to show you today some of the tools that I like to use with my serger. The first one is the little brush that comes with the serger. It has a brush on one end and on the other end is an insert tool. You can use this to insert your needles, and sometimes my fingers are not quite long enough to reach where they need to whenever I need to load a needle in. And so you can just drop your needle right into that little hole. And they're great for your sewing machines or your serger, either one. And when you put your needles into your serger, be sure that you push it all the way up as far as it'll go. There is a little window right above the needle, and just make sure that you can see the top of that needle and it fits up as far as it can go. If you find that you're not having pretty stitches, you might want to check that area. Just make sure that that screw has not loosened any, and tighten it up and make sure that that needle's not dropping down any. And speaking of the needles that come with the machine are the EL705CFs. These happen to be organ. One neat tip that I can give you about the needles is be sure that you're always using the same size and the same type needle. And that goes for brand too. So if you're using an organ needle, be sure that you're using all organ needles. This will allow you to get the prettiest stitch that you can get from your baby lock. But be sure to use the same size and the same type in all of your needle locations. So if you're using 3 needles, they should all be the same size and type. Tweezers are wonderful. If you've never used them, baby lock tweezers are really wonderful. They can get in and pull out threads wherever. Sometimes they get stuck in the serger, sometimes they get stuck somewhere in your sewing machine. So keep a pair of tweezers around. They come in very handy. The spool caps are another tool that I like to use, depending on what kind of thread I'm using. They have several different types of spool caps. One has sponge, one does not, and one is like a foam. And this one is really great for those slick type items that the thread drops off and gets underneath it. If you'll use one of these, that will not happen. With the sponge type, it fits really well with these types of thread. You can see it sits on there, and it'll keep the thread from dropping underneath your spool also. The other type without the sponge sometimes works better with these smaller little threads that fit down on top of it. If you're having trouble with your stitches and your thread catches, try to change spool caps and see if you can find a different spool cap that works just a little bit better. And these are the cone holders, and sometimes whenever you use them up like this and push it in there, sometimes they get warped or bent in. If you'll turn it around, it's a tighter fit and it holds the cone better. So try that if your cones are wiggling or whatever. And the last thing that I wanted to show you is the thread net, and it's loaded up here. If you have never used a thread net with the serger, you can use it on your any of your slick threads like your metallics or woolly nylon. This happens to be a fusible thread that's up here. And just put your thread net around your thread spool and bunch it up on the bottom, set it on top of a spool cap, and then just make sure that it flows freely coming off the spool. Hope you learned something today, and thanks for listening.